Hello guys, this is Movie Lover and welcome to this Movie Lover world. After a night of drunken partying, the university student Teresa wakes up on her birthday in the dorm room of her classmate Carter. Still confused a little bit by the surroundings, she ignores her seemingly one-night stand lover, walks out and returns to her room. Teresa is raised in a rich family, but she seems too self-centered towards people around. Her roommate Lori gives her a cupcake for the celebration of her birthday. Teresa throws it away and shows no appreciation. She then joins the sorority, which declares strict rules and even kicks out those violators from the group. So in order to keep the rules herself, she has pushed Carter away, who shows up just to return her lost necklace. Teresa is obsessed with a medical professor, even though she knows the professor is married, and she's discouraged by her roommate Lori. She just wants to keep the sex relationship with the professor. She almost gets caught by his wife one time after they just had sex. That night, on her way to a party, Teresa is lured into a tunnel by a delicate music box, which is then playing the birthday song for her. While she's wondering it may be a trick from someone, she's suddenly attacked by a figure wearing a mask of the school mascot. She soon runs away for life but gets stabbed to death at last. Teresa wakes up back in Carter's bed and she feels more confused by the same stuffs around and the same man standing before her saying the same words. She walks out the dorm again but feels unnerved to find that the previous day's events repeating themselves. From the same student she talks to, she finds she still lives in her birthday. That's th of September, the sorority, the necklace, and the sex affair with her favorite professor. Everything repeats itself almost the same way on her. Later that night, still frightened, Teresa is urged to join the party, but on her way to the same party, without any surprise, she sees the same music box laying on the ground there. This time she decides to ignore it right away and changes the routes to the party, trying to avoid the previous danger this way. But the time she catches sight of a man wearing the same mask inside the party room, she knocks him down without any hesitation, but soon only finds out she hit a wrong guy because it's actually a welcome trick for people there. The guy seems to forgive Teresa for the head and then flirts her to his room, which is mistaken by Teresa to be a sex invitation, but it turns out that the man only shows his interest in the music rather than her hot and sexy body. By the time she decides to ignore the rude man, the masked murderer kills the poor man suddenly under cover of loud music. Then he turns to Teresa. She is freaked out by the murderer showing up from nowhere. She gets murdered the same this time, even though she struggles hard against the killer. Teresa wakes up screaming, only finding herself back again to Carter's dorm room. She rushes out of the room and realizes she is in a time loop. Still in huge horror, she returns to her dorm room and tells Lori about the crazy thing happening to her. Lori, however, just takes it as some kind of serious trick. Teresa is determined to avoid the murder this time, hence she barricades herself in her room with the door and window blocked up tightly, and she refuses to go for any party again. But even in this way, she's panicked, stricken by an unknown postcard on the table bearing the same mask. Alerted by the suddenly shut down television, she approaches slowly to the restroom with a hammer and hand for defense, but she's then distracted by the television sound and gets attacked by the murderer showing up behind. Teresa is lucky enough to avoid his first deadly attack this time, but she's killed the same due to her extreme panic. Waking up another time, the panicked Teresa screams out everywhere. She tries to explain the whole weird thing to Carter, who actually doesn't mock it at her insanity, but rather Carter even suggests her taking advantage of the loop to identify her killer in the dream. With his help, Teresa makes a list of her suspects. She spends the next several iterations trailing people she considers suspects, but no matter how hard she tries to avoid, she gets killed each time. One time she even faints and awakens in the campus hospital, where she refuses the sex affair with the professor. After the professor walks away, Teresa sneaks into his office for the car key, where she happens to find a similar mask in the drawer. But by the time Teresa is frightened and want to leave the damn place with car key, she witnesses the professor get stabbed deadly by the killer. She then goes get the car and speeds out without any time to pause. She's later pulled over by the police for speeding. For her safety this time, she pretends to be drunk driving, trying to make herself detained by the police for safe. Nevertheless, things always go far beyond her expectation. The poor police is knocked over by the coming killer and Teresa gets blown up to death. Teresa gets weaker every time she wakes up from the death. she shows the repetition evidence to Carter and makes him trust her whole story. As they get more familiar with each other, Teresa turns to be frank with such kind man and begins to tell him her true feelings towards her family. Right at that time she learns from the news about a serial killer held in the hospital. She suspects it might be the actual serial killer she always met. Without any delay she runs all the way to the hospital trying to warn the staff there of the danger, but it's too late. She soon finds the security's already dead and the killer comes chasing after her. Right at that critical moment Carter follows up and knocks down the killer, but Carter can't take up her hand anymore. He's soon neck killed by the masked man. Teresa then launches her sudden attack in the height and gets the chance to terminate the killer forever, but rather she chooses to hang herself dead this time because she realizes that Carter will remain dead if she ends the loop. Teresa awakens in Carter's dorm room again and finds him alive. Now confident in solving her murder, Teresa proceeds happily through the day. She behaves friendly towards people around, ends her affair with the professor, withdraws herself from the hypocritical sorority, and even meets her father for her birthday lunch where the two begin to reconcile. That night she's determined to put an end with a murderer. She goes all the way to the hospital, grabs the gun from the security guard, but she fails to shoot the killer with the safety lock on. However, thanks to the previous repetitious deaths, Teresa has gained enough experience to deal with killer. Right now, after a fierce fight, she shoots the killer dead and ends the whole story. Relieved to finally be free, Teresa celebrates her birthday in Carter's room and eats the cupcake Lori gave her. To her surprise, she wakes up again on the same th of September and finds herself still in the loop. The horrified Teresa returns to her room with the intent to run away, where Lori offers her the cupcake again. Teresa realizes the previous loop was the only time she had ever eaten a cupcake and she had died in her sleep. She thinks Lori must be her true killer and she's poisoned to death by the cupcake. Despite Lori's denying, Teresa threatens to take the cupcake to the police. Lori then shows her real face and begins to attack Teresa. Lori admits she plans to kill Teresa out of jealousy because Lori is also having an affair with the professor and the professor shows preference only for Teresa. To reach her evil goal and avoid getting caught every time after she kills Teresa, she will place the evil mask on the serial killer, trying to mislead the police. However, Lori never knows that Teresa gets well trained through the previous serial killings. During ensuing fight, Teresa stuffs the poison cupcake in her mouth, then kicks her out the window to death. The next morning, when Teresa wakes up the Carter's room, she's terrified by the same words said by Carter, which makes her feel like she's back to th day again. But in the end, she enjoys her lovely new day for the first time after she realizes it's actually a joke. She finally confirms that she is now living in September. Thanks for watching. Movie Lover will meet you again with new story. Till take care.